from the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee. I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. I want to talk about something that, well, I was a little hesitant to even bring it up because I'm still forming my thoughts. This is a little tough. The biggest stories since last we spoke, for me, and this is going to sound odd, the desecration of the White House, taking a wrecking ball to the White House, and that ridiculous AI video of the orange meat puppet flying over demonstrators and dropping feces on them. Part of me just wanted to ignore that story altogether. But I feel like it's important that we think about how we respond to things like this. And I mentioned the two stories because they don't really sound related, but demolishing the East Wing and putting up this grotesque ballroom is also a form of trolling. It's all trolling. Not entirely, but it all has that component. Every statement, every action, every violation of law that the regime doles out has a component of trolling, of, owning the libs, of just being outrageous. They think that our outrage is their win. It's a major part of the strategy. It's not a distraction. Please take that word out of your vocabulary entirely. I don't want to hear the word distraction anymore. It's become so overused and used as a crutch to not deal with issues. So yeah, our reaction is part of their strategy. And I'm only going to use this term once, and then I'm going to try to find other alternatives. But shit posting is the most accurate term for it. Trolling is the more general term. But trolling isn't really strong enough. It's got to have shock value. These things are intentionally offensive. That's why I include the desecration of the White House. They know how offensive this is, the Miller-voked regime. That's why they're letting the orange meat puppet do it. Yeah, it's all, well, again, not all, but a component of everything they do is to get a reaction from us. You've heard many times, I'm sure, that to the narcissist, every accusation is a confession. And I believe there's a lot of truth to that. I would add that trolling, every time you troll, every time a narcissist trolls, is a confession. So the AI video of the orange meat puppet being a fighter jet pilot and creating this really grotesque, repulsive video, it's supposed to be layered in sarcasm. But it's layered in sarcasm in order to give license to say exactly what they mean. It's like when they commit crimes right in broad daylight, and then they'll say something like, well, to the effect of, well, how can it be a crime if he's doing it in broad daylight? It can't be a crime if we're not hiding it. If you're going to commit a crime, you hide it. If you're going to be sarcastic, you're evasive, you're cheeky about it. You don't just come right out. So this is a key component of their game. And it's not trivial. It's important. And we have to stop being befuddled by it. So yeah, they're not distractions. They're not optics. They're part of the central scheme. Yeah, take the words distraction and distract just right out of your vocabulary. Stop using it as an excuse to let things go. And it's not all just optics. That's another one I keep hearing over and over again. Well, to have billionaires at a fancy dinner giving $25 million a pop to donate for this ballroom, it's bad optics when the government is shut down and people are having a hard time affording groceries. Hey, man, that's a lot more than just optics. Stop. Stop with the optics. Everything that's happening is real. Everything that's happening is for a purpose. Everything that's happening is on their agenda. Stephen Miller, Russell Vogt, running the regime as co-dictators, know exactly what they're doing. So what we have to do is to be able to show outrage, righteous outrage, without buying into their trolling. It's perfectly legitimate and reasonable to be outraged. Our challenge is how we communicate that outrage. Because, as you and I have talked about many times, and I'm going to continue to reiterate, it is our absolute civic duty to speak truth. It's the single most important thing we do. We speak truth when all around us are lies. And speaking truth includes a duty to call out these offenses with clarity. We have to call them what they are. They're grotesque. They're vulgar. The AI videos. They're repulsive. They're crude. The new ballroom is tacky. His language, obscene. I'm no prude, but come on. Have you read the latest reports about last Friday's meeting with Zelensky at the White House? I guess the expletives were just flying. So without wringing our hands, without sounding like church ladies, without clutching our pearls, we just have to be very direct. The Oval Office and all of its gold trim is just tacky and gross. Everything about the ICE raids and the kidnappings, wrestling women and children to the ground and zip-tying them, is repulsive. Everything the regime is doing right now, large and small, needs to be described accurately. We need to respond daily to everything that is offensive and just disgusting. And that doesn't mean that they're satisfying their own the libs strategy. I admit it's a tricky distinction. Okay, I admit that. It's a fine line to walk. But we have to try, because we can't turn our backs. We can't ignore what they're doing on a daily basis. We have to call it out. It's a daily onslaught, and it can't be ignored. We have to stay calm, but we have to be firm. We have to be the adults. And we can't fight, shit for shit. The whole when they go low, we go high debate is always kind of hanging over our heads. You know, the Gavin Newsom thing was funny for a while, but it's wearing thin. It's wearing very thin. He released an AI poop video, which was just gross and disgusting. That post from Gavin Newsom, and I've seen some others, it crosses over. It's no longer clever parody, which it was, and I thought it was pretty funny in the beginning and pretty effective because it was good parody. And the right wing was too dumb to understand that it was parody. They thought that Newsom was actually trying to copy the Orange Meat Puppets style. Yeah, that's what they thought. That's how dumb they are. So yeah, in the beginning I was all for it. I thought it was great. But it's just over. Especially this last post. No. It's crossed over into actual shit posting. The strategy of Newsom and others who engage on our side is becoming the very thing that it's supposed to be a parody of. He's becoming what he initially set out to fight. And that's what all of us are doing when we think we're being clever. We've literally become what we hate. And then the whole social and political culture just sinks into the muck. We're all becoming vulgar, repulsive, crude. The whole culture is becoming grotesque for God knows how long, maybe permanently. We can't let them do this to us. All right, I want to mention something from last episode. I was very critical of the No Kings speakers, at least at my event, and the ones I heard and read about in media. Nobody took it to the next level. Nobody from any podium I heard, from behind any microphone I heard, talked about general strikes and boycotts. Well, a day or two after I spoke with you, I saw a tape of Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson do that very thing. He called for a general strike in his No Kings speech to the tens of thousands in Chicago. So good. And it actually made mainstream media. I think MSNBC talked about it for a whole maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Brandon said that every major social movement has relied on direct action. So, yeah, good for Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. Very happy about that. I wish it were more. I wish it would take off. I wish it was more than 4 minutes on mainstream media. But, think about it. The Montgomery bus boycott. California grapes boycott. Disinvestment from apartheid in South Africa. We have to get on this. There is a movement out there. I think I've mentioned it once or twice. Black out the system. I think that's how you find them. Yeah, blackoutthesystem.com. Or just hashtag blackoutthesystem. Check it out. As always, I imagine this is a coalition of organizations. But they're asking us to black out November 25th through December 2nd. Those, of course, the big Christmas shopping days, Black Friday, all of that. And you know me, I'm asking you for a permanent boycott of all corporate goods until we win. Only purchase what you absolutely need, and never ever from large corporations. With the exception being things like, what's the exception I always use? If you need batteries for your emergency radio, I guess you might have to buy it from a corporation. Okay, I get it. In fact, I suppose that's something that you and I should talk about sometime. I'm not really prepared for it today, but things that you can buy during an economic blackout. Obviously, we have to live. We have to eat. So, just off the top of my head, just the bare minimum, what you need. If you want to celebrate your kid's birthday, buy a balloon. Okay, I'm not telling you to crawl in a hole and live like Saddam Hussein until this thing is over. So things you can buy during an economic blackout. You can always do the thrift store thing. You can buy used. If you actually need something, there are thrift stores. There are buy nothing groups that are easily accessible on social media. Every town, every neighborhood seems to have one. So there are plenty of alternatives. It's really just the decision to do it. If you want to get a little more committed, there are things like community gardens. You can have your own victory garden. We don't have to always rely on big ag for every morsel of food. That takes a little more commitment, but there you go. Now, the problem, of course, and I go back and forth on this because it's clear that the rich folks, the top 1 or top 5 or maybe even top 10%, they're the ones really driving the economy. They're the ones spending the money. In fact, a recent study said wealthy Americans are spending hand over fist right now. They're having a fine old time. And the rest of us are pulling back, not out of righteous ideas of boycotting, just because we have to. So it's already happening. So my calls for boycotts and for reduced consumer spending, seem a little ridiculous, even to me. But the other side of that argument, the other side of that coin is, yeah, rich folks spend the money, but we outnumber them 99-1. So just on scale, just on sheer volume, our choices absolutely matter. And if enough of us got on board with general boycotts and just plain old reduced spending, it would make a difference. It would make a dent in the economy. It would get the attention of the one percenters who own retail stores and own streaming services. And maybe they wouldn't be so quick to go to $1 million a plate fundraiser for the orange meat puppet, as they did recently, handing out $25 million checks for his little Mar-a-Lago vanity project adjacent to the White House. So do it now. As I said, this movement here is asking us to sit out Black Friday entirely and the rest of their silly days, Cyber Monday and the rest of it. We've taken to the streets. Now we need to hit them financially, according to one notice I'm looking at. Yes, that's exactly right. So blackoutthesystem.com, hashtag blackoutthesystem. Get on board. Share the information. It's a national movement born out of frustration, injustice, and the undeniable truth that the people hold the power, not corrupt governments, not billionaires, not broken systems. We are shutting down the U.S. economy strategically and peacefully by removing our labor, our spending, our financial support. No work. Okay, so this blackout the system is including the general strike. No work, no spending, no travel, no projects, no events, no restaurants, nothing. No backing out. 100%. That's where we are. That's where we are right now. It's where we have to be. And success will only come through community organization. We can't just do this alone. And through sustained participation. The Montgomery bus boycott, the California grape boycott, the disinvestment from apartheid South Africa, all sustained efforts over months, over years. And then it's absolutely crucial that we find a way to generate public attention, as well as the continued legal and political activism. Shout out the ACLU and other organizations who are taking the fight to the courts. As far as the political world, I don't know. I can't find any good examples there. Bernie and AOC are going on their tours, and they had a pretty good town hall on CNN. I guess they're doing what they can. I don't know. But you say, well, that'll hurt workers. That'll hurt all of us if we try to do these things. If we just shut down the economy, how will we live? Well, yeah, I know. That's something else we just have to understand. Yeah, a bunch of protesters blocking a freeway inconveniences people. Boycotts and strikes will inconvenience people. It'll hurt people. We have to go in understanding that and still be willing to do it. That's why I keep hammering and hammering about mutual aid. You have to have mutual aid networks well established in order for any of this to work. That's why planning is so key. That's why community organizing is so key. Mutual aid is an essential component to that kind of direct action. Because as has been well established now, politics ain't going to get us there. To the extent that politics is still a thing, and it has to be, we have to get serious here. I'm calling on every congressional district to run a primary opponent against Democratic incumbents. We have to primary every Democrat in the nation, except maybe for Bernie, AOC, and Ro Khanna. If there are others, let me know. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Primary challengers. Run on the 80-20 issues. Universal health care, affordability. Look at Zoran Mamdani's approach. I think you should also run on impeachment. Run on holding political criminals to account. Half the cabinet needs to be in jail by the time this is all said and done. But mostly run on the issues. Again, those 80-20 issues that neither the Democrats nor repugnants have been able to deliver on for generations now. But that doesn't mean you can't also promise impeachment, promise political accountability. We can walk and chew gum. If we're lucky enough to get to a presidential election in 2028, I would encourage whoever's running against the orange meat puppet to make the following promises. I'm going to strip the Oval Office down to its studs and have a smudging ritual to detox the evil mojo. I'm going to take a wrecking ball to that monstrosity that he calls a ballroom, that grotesque behemoth that towers over the White House. Have you seen the designs of this thing? Yeah, 2028 presidential candidate promised to blow that thing to smithereens. You think I'm being cheeky right now or sarcastic? Nope, I'm not. I'm being 100% serious. I'm being literal right now. I'm being literal. Yeah, tear down the ballroom, put up a greenhouse. That's what was originally there in 1866. Did you know that? It was originally a greenhouse. Tear up the Mar-a-Lago patio and resod the rose garden. Yeah. Devote a whole segment of your stump speech to that. Also, for congressional candidates, especially those challenging Democratic incumbents in primaries, you're going to run on ousting the leadership. You will commit to never vote for Chuck Schumer as leader or Hakeem Jeffries as speaker. You will pledge to your voters that you will be a no vote on the current leadership in the Democratic Party, because the Democrats, they just still suck beyond measure. Congressman Adam Smith is the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee, and he's demanding an immediate hearing into the growing scandal of the boat murders. I call on Speaker Johnson to immediately bring the House back into session, to not only work to end the Republican shutdown, but to also enable the committees to conduct critical oversight. I call on Speaker Johnson? See, this is what I'm talking about. This is nuts. As I speak, Senator Jeff Merkley, Democrat of Oregon, is on the Senate floor making one of those 24-hour speeches. I think as I'm speaking, so is he. Yeah, come on, Democrats. What are you waiting for? You can have your own hearings. You can call witnesses. You can make some news. What are they going to do? Lock you out of the building? Fine, do it outside. Live stream them. Do something. Speaking of the boat murders, 2 more killed on Wednesday. Another boat blown out of the water by U.S. military. This time on the Pacific side off of South America. Yeah, another 2 people killed, murdered. International crimes happening here. You remember the one before that was the first time there were survivors? You heard what happened there, right? Yeah, there were 2 survivors of one of the recent attacks. And the U.S. immediately sent them back to their home countries of Ecuador and Colombia. Alleged narco-terrorists. Oh, yeah, no, we won't prosecute them. We'll just send them back. The one from Ecuador was immediately released because there was no evidence that he had done anything wrong. So, yeah, why do you suppose they just sent them back? Why do you suppose they didn't put them on trial? Gee, I wonder. You've probably heard by now, this news is several days old. Colombian President Gustavo Petro has revealed that at least one of the victims was an innocent lifelong fisherman whose vessel was experiencing engine problems when it was obliterated by Pete Hegseth and his armed forces. Yeah, several of these guys just belong in jail. And we can't be afraid to say so. We can't be strategic with our language. Candidates for office can't let consultants decide what issues play better than others. Democrats, independents, socialists, anarchists, whoever, I don't care. Anybody left of MAGA. You can walk and chew gum. Tell the voters exactly what you're going to do to achieve the 80-20 issues, and also promise to put this gang of thieves, crooks, and murderers in jail. I call on Speaker Johnson. What a joke. Yeah, you know, at first, I wasn't all that upset about the new ballroom. I thought it was ridiculous and tacky. But the original plan was just to sort of add on. It was an addition to the East Wing. It really wasn't any big deal. But now we've learned, well, first of all, we've seen the demolition here the last few days. And it just makes people sick. the people's house. It's not his to take a wrecking ball to. But now we've learned that the entire East Wing is being demolished. The entire East Wing. The sketches, the renderings of this ballroom, it's just a monstrosity. It towers over the White House. It dwarfs the White House. It is grotesque. And like everything else the Miller-Vogt regime does, it's illegal. The National Capital Planning Commission, the NCPC, is the federal agency charged with approving this kind of construction. Miller and Vogt haven't even bothered to submit any sort of plan for approval. Everything they do is illegal. Again, everything they do is trolling. It has a component of in your face. I dare you to do anything about it. The National Park Service is supposed to weigh in on these sorts of projects. The United States Secret Service is supposed to weigh in. The National Capital Planning Commission was established by an act of Congress. So just like everything else the regime does, it's all outrageous and it's all illegal. I mentioned earlier that spot that's currently being destroyed was originally a greenhouse in 1866. The East Wing itself was built in 1902 during the Teddy Roosevelt administration. The structure as we know it, at least until earlier this week, was finished in 1942 under FDR when they built a big old bomb shelter underneath. And now it's going to be a monument to bad taste and corruption, because the whole thing is about corruption too. All the donors, the $250 million price tag. Lockheed Martin, Google, Blackstone, R.J. Reynolds, Palantir, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Apple, Comcast, T-Mobile, a bunch of crypto bros. All the usual suspects are part of the deal. And I'm going to end where I began. Our response is not inconsequential. I'm tired of the advice, the very bad advice we keep getting. Oh, don't play into their trolling. Don't be distracted. Yeah, screw that. The enemies of fascism are defiance and truth. No more playing games, no more second guessing, no more reaching across the aisle, no more finding common ground, no more strategists and consultants advising us on which issues play with the electorate and which ones don't. Nope. Each of us, from the rank and file, those in office, and those running for office, and the activists leading movements, all of us, have to be straight talking. We have to speak truth. We have to be fearless. We have to be honest. We have to be authentic. The Stephen Miller, Russell Vogt regime, with their orange meat puppet in the spotlight, is conducting a vulgar and grotesque project of government fueled by sheer gall. And we have to meet them on the field of battle with at least an equal level of defiance and truth-telling. All right, that's it for today. Boycott everything. Spread the word. I'm Charles Purcell. I'll talk to you on Monday.